Hello, this is a video lecture on the amendments, notes number 3, just in case you're absent on the day that it was given or you need a little refresher on what other amendments do and what rights they protect. So we're going to get started. First of all, an amendment. An amendment is official change to the Constitution. It is not an easy thing to make this change or an amendment. Throughout the history of the United States, over 200 plus years, we've only had 27 amendments, showing you that they don't happen very often. In order for an amendment to be passed, it has to be passed by both the state legislatures, meaning every state has to vote on it, and Congress. For the states, you need to have three-fourths majority. Since we have 50 states, that means 37 states have to say yes to a potential amendment. Then it goes to Congress, where it has to pass a majority in the House of Representatives and in the Senate, the two parts of Congress. And then it becomes an official change. They didn't want it to be so simple that they could make change after change after change. First of all, the First Amendment is one of the most important amendments because it protects so many rights. The easy way to remember how many are protected is by the word RAPS, R-A-P-P-S. R for religion, A for assembly, P for petition, P for press, and S for speech. Let's go through these really quick and what they mean. First of all, religion, freedom of religion. It means you have the right to practice your religion as long as it doesn't violate other people's rights. So the idea is that you should be able in this country to practice whatever religion you have as long as you do it kind of peacefully. Because if you claim you're an Aztec and your religion is that you must sacrifice individuals for your gods, that does not get protected by freedom of religion because you are taking somebody else's rights, killing them in order to practice your religion. Assembly means you have the right to assemble together in a group, usually for protests, and that goes along with petition to ask for change. So you're allowed in this government to ask for change and to get together to demand some sort of change, whether that works or not. You do have the right to do that. Depending on the size of your assembly or petition, it determines whether you're going to be successful or get some at least attention toward the cause that you have. Freedom of the press, the other P, is freedom for the journalist to be able to write the truth. Now, what that means is you can't just write in the newspapers or now on social media anything you want. There are laws about you writing lies. You have to provide it with evidence to back it up, or you could be sued for libel. But the idea is that no journalist should be afraid of their leaders when they're printing something negative about them. As in, a senator is doing something illegally, and a newspaper prints all the evidence that they have against the senator, they shouldn't be afraid they're going to be thrown in jail because of the power of the senator. Last one is speech, freedom of speech. We live in a country where your speech is protected for the most part. Right now, the freedom of speech means that you are protected by laws in terms of what you say. It does not mean that there are no consequences. And it does not mean that you can say whatever you want, whenever you want. If you say something that is very negative about a person can sue you for defamation of character, meaning they sue you because you're attacking them without any evidence. And a court could rule that you are guilty of this and they could make you pay that person monetary compensation, meaning money. But what it's intended for is for you to be able to voice your opinions, voice what you like, voice what you don't like. So freedom of speech is protected against going to jail, but if it doesn't mean there are no consequences. Also, you cannot just say what you say whenever you want. If you're in a crowded theater and it's packed, and you think it's funny and you yell, fire, fire, everybody get out, and people start freaking out and they're starting to run out of the theater, and as a result of you causing that freak out, people fall as they're trying to get out and people stomp on them to death, you will be held responsible. That is not freedom of speech. Your speech incited a riot which caused violence, and that will be punished, and you can go to jail for that. Second Amendment is a very controversial amendment. It's the right to bear arms. What does that mean? As the right to own weapons, protection. Now, the interpretation of what it means for protection is the part that makes this controversial. It's up to you and what you feel that means. But essentially, you have the right to own a weapon to protect yourself. Does that mean that somebody comes on your property, you could just shoot them? No. You have to be in the process of protecting. If they're running away from you, you cannot just shoot them, even if you have that weapon. So we'll get into more details with that later. Third Amendment, the quartering of soldiers. This goes back to the quartering act from before the revolution began, where they made you take soldiers when they forced you to take soldiers into your home and feed and let them stay there, which really upset the colonists so much because they would give away their extra supplies for the winter. And they didn't want the soldiers there. So when they wrote the Constitution and the amendments, they put this in there to make sure we do not have to give soldiers any quartering, as in food or shelter for the night. Fourth Amendment, very important for our rights. Search and seizure. Warrant needed to enter your home. A police officer cannot simply come into your house because they want to. They have to have a warrant issued by a court saying that they are allowed to go in there. Now, they could ask you, is it okay if we come in? Once you say yes, they no longer need a warrant because you have issued that permission for them to go in. But a court will only order a warrant if there is a reason for it. Police officers or law enforcement have to provide evidence to show that there is some sort of crime going on and that they need to go in there to collect evidence. If a court issues a warrant, it will have the address, it will have of the location, and the police officer knocks on your door and they can come in without your permission. Fifth Amendment is a right to criminal cases. Most importantly, due process. The idea that you have the right to go to court and defend yourself. There are also a couple other ones, double jeopardy and plead the fifth. The right to go to court is something basic that we hold in our country, basic right, that we hold in our country, that if somebody accuses you of a crime, you have the right to a lawyer, you have the right to go in front of a judge with a jury, and you have the right to defend yourself. And you have the right for them to have to provide the evidence against you. Very, very important thing, a right that we have. Double jeopardy means that if you are tried for a crime, they go through the whole process, they try you, they put the evidence, and a jury comes back not guilty, you can never be tried for that same crime again. Double jeopardy protects the right for them to continuously keep on charging you with the same crime, and even though you might be found not guilty, not guilty, not guilty, not guilty, not guilty 5 straight times, the 6th time might be guilty, and even though you were found not guilty 5 times, the only one that will matter with the 6th one. So this says you cannot do that once, and that's it. Now, if it does not go all the way to where the jury gives a decision, they can technically drop the case against you and bring it back again. So it's only if it goes through the whole complete process where the jury comes back with a verdict. If they comes back not guilty, they can never try you again. Plead the fifth basically means you have the right to be quiet. You have the right to shut up. You have the right to not say anything against yourself when they are arresting you. They will read you something called the Miranda rights, which you've probably heard on TV, something like you have the right to remain silent. Anything you say will be held against you in the court of law. You have the right to an attorney, and so on. And it's basically telling you, you have the right to be quiet. Make sure you don't say anything that where you yell something out in anger, and then the police officer can go to court and testify what you said. So they're accusing you of beating somebody up, and in the moment of you being angry as they're arresting you, like she deserved it or he deserved it, the police officer can go and testify that when they arrested you about the crime, you said those words, which the jury can now use against you. So you have the right to be quiet. Sixth Amendment, right to a fair and speedy trial. You have the right to get a trial quickly, in front of a judge quickly. What that protects against you is, you get arrested for something, you don't have to wait 4 months in jail while they get you out. While they're in front of a courtroom, because you could be in jail for 3 months, and then you go in front of a judge, and the judge looks at the preliminary evidence and says, there's not enough here for a case, he's let go. So at that point, you're happy because you're let go, but you just spent 3 months in jail for something that you shouldn't have spent. So you have the right to a fair and speedy trial. Rights, number 7, right to civil cases, right to sue, basically. You have the right to sue within our society. Somebody does something against you, they crash you unfairly, they hit and run, somebody says something that's a lie that hurts your business, like we're talking about freedom of speech. So they completely lie about your business, and now people are not coming to your business because of those lies. You can sue them. You have the right to sue in our country. The Eighth Amendment, which is not listed because the video will not let me go down, is the right to not cruel and unusual punishment and bail. Bail means basically that when you go and are arrested, the judge will issue an amount that will allow you to go out of jail while the court case goes on. So say that you get arrested and they say your bail is $10,000. You have to provide bond for $10,000. If you do, they will release you so you could be at home, still go to work, still do your normal life while you're going to court. Now, after the court comes back and if they find you guilty, then they will, then you have to go to jail. But if they don't, then you did not spend all that time that the court case was going on in jail. You were at home because you provided bail. Cruel and unusual punishment basically means the punishment must fit the crime, that you should not be punished severely for the crimes that you commit. So if you steal a car, it should not be that, all right, which arm do you want to be chopped off? We're going to punish you by stealing by cutting off your right hand or your left hand. That would be cruel and unusual, and that is protected by the Eighth Amendment. Um, All right. Oh, here's the eighth. I'm sorry. There's the Eighth and Ninth Amendment. No, Eighth Amendment. All right. The Ninth Amendment is right retained by the people, not written in the Constitution. What this basically means is there are rights that simply cannot be written down. There are so many rights that we have as individuals, as people, that cannot be written down. Like you have the right to have your hairstyle. You have the right to wear certain clothes. You have so many different rights like those that there's no way they could write them into the Constitution. There's no way they could write every single right that you have as an individual, as a human, into one document because the document would go on forever. And then what if they didn't write your right down? Then does that mean somebody could take it away from you because it's not specifically written down? So they created this amendment, rights retained by the people, basically saying just because it's not written specifically in the Constitution does not mean you do not have that right. Very important amendment because it protects you from a lot of different things that are not written specifically word by word in the Constitution. The 10th Amendment is states' rights. Powers delegated to the federal government by the Constitution are reserved to the states. What this basically means is the federal government or the central government, the one that controls the whole country, is going to have a lot of power. But if a power is not taken by them, it will be given down to the states, and individual states will decide how they will go forward. An example of how the federal government deals with, say, immigration. Immigration is a federal power, meaning only the federal government can deal with it. The states cannot pass individual laws on immigration. It has to be the federal. Another example is the right to vote and the age. The federal government has that power to decide that we will vote at age 18. And not any older or younger. A state cannot just go and say, all right, anybody from 14 and on could vote now. That is going against this idea of states' rights. Now, there are rights like when you get your ID or your driver's license. There are that the federal government decides they're not going to deal with this issue. That becomes a state issue. So some states will have you as early as 14 be able to get a license, and some will make you wait till 18. And like California, will be somewhere in between at 16. So the idea is there's a lot of rights that belong only to the federal government, and then there are other rights that are given to the states, and individual states decide on their own. So depending on what these different rights are, you could go from state to state, and they would have different rules because they voted differently on those state issues. But the federal issues, the big issues, those are the ones that the federal government deal with. The states cannot change, even if they want. All right, so that is a quick lecture on this. If you have any questions, you can come and see me. Hope you have a good day.